how we can close the wealth gap for Black women.
The inequality that Black women are facing in the workplace is really a state of emergency.
Black Women's Equal Pay Day symbolizes how much longer Black women would have to work into the new year to earn the same amount of money that non-Hispanic white men did at the end of the previous year, which is determined by data from the U.S. Census Bureau. In 2022, it took 264 days for Black women to catch up.
Last year, Black Women's Equal Pay Day was a full 7 weeks earlier than it is this year, which means between 2020 and 2021, the wage gap between non-Hispanic white males and Black women has actually widened. What do you account for that change?
Well, the gap was already there before the pandemic, but it actually exacerbated the situation for Black women because of some of the industries that we worked in during the pandemic. So we were hit the hardest. So maybe some of the service industries, for example, we didn't have the option to be able to work remotely. So that meant that many of us did not receive pay.
Minda Hearts is a workplace and equity consultant as well as the CEO for the Memo LLC, which assists women of color in achieving their personal and professional goals.
First of all, this is a problem that we did not create. So I want to make that very clear to our counterparts as well as those leading companies to make sure that you're doing right by Black women. But the other part of that is that as Black women, what part of this equation can we control? And that's continuously advocating for ourselves at every turn, not just for us, but making sure that we're asking and advocating for what we want for the next generation, because we don't want them to inherit the same wage gap that we did.
How do you suggest that non-Black allies use their privilege to help close this gap?
Allies can really activate their allyship by helping Black women close the wage gap by doing this. Making sure that they're transparent about what they're making. And if they see that there's inequalities taking place, that they use their voice. Last year, I had a situation where I was booked to speak at a company, and they said they were going to give me X amount of speaking fee. And then the pandemic happened, and so they switched to virtual to make it safe for everybody. But what I noticed was they wanted to pay me $8,000 less than what they originally quoted me for, but for the same thing, for the same presentation. And that didn't sit well with me. So I asked an ally who I know spoke there virtually just a few weeks before I would, and she was able to get her same speaking fee, and they ended up buying books. And so with that information and her transparency to be an ally and be honest with me, I was able to have a negotiation conversation about what I was willing to do and what I wasn't willing to do. But I couldn't have had that informed conversation without that information.
You know what I love the most about Gen Z and millennials? We are not afraid to talk about money. I'm gonna tell you what I make, you're gonna tell me what you make, and we're gonna figure out how to work the system to make it work for us.
That part.
Your new book, You Are More Than Magic, is written specifically for teens. How do you feel that the anecdotes within this book will prepare young women for fighting for financial equity in their future?
When I entered into the workforce, I didn't know what the wealth gap was. I didn't know what the wage inequality was. And so at 13, I had my first job at Dairy Queen, and I was advocating for myself even then, but I didn't know that that's what it was called. I just knew that I deserved more than $5 an hour. I was like, can I ask for $8? And so I want our young girls to know that they have a voice right now, and we can't control what happens on the other end, but we can control our ask. And if we flex that muscle early on, then we'll be better suited to break down that wage gap later on.